day that said he wasn't available on Monday evening.
Sometimes he pops in and surprises us.
We are live.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Stratford Board of Education Finance Committee's special meeting and workshop for our itemized estimate of expenditures. It is June 7th, 2021, and thank you. We do have a quorum. So for tonight, our item for discussion and action is the adoption of the fiscal year 2021-22 itemized estimate of expenditures. As you all know, the town council gave us a 2.25% increase, and Pam sent us an email stating that the ESSER 2 grant was approved, though there was no denomination given for that. And Pam or Dr. Robinson, one of the two of you, I'm going to ask you to go over specifically the cuts to get us to the 2.25 that you're recommending.
Okay, I'll do a little introduction. Pam will get to some of the specifics in just a second. As you know, we were waiting to find out what the council was going to be giving us, although we had been told it'd be 2.25. That was confirmed Monday. But the other thing we were waiting for was approval on the ESSER 2 funds. We have been going back and forth with the state in an effort to get the approval. And finally, as soon as we got the approval, which last week, we notified you. I think I let Allison know within 15 minutes, we finally got approval. And the reason that it's critical is that we needed to know what we had available and what they were going to allow us to use that money for. And now that we have the approval and we have stated what we want to do with that money, which is a small part of it is going to be continuity of services, and it does affect this budget. So Pam, you want to pick up from this point to talk a little bit about what we've been planning to do?
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen with to reflect the scoreboard that I sent to you on Friday.
Pam, just so you know, not all the members of the committee received it.
I did apologize, Ben. Yeah. I did overlook him and Bob, and I sincerely apologize for that. I sometimes click our Board of Ed already set up email address and didn't realize you're not in that. So my sincere apologies.
Pam sent it to us this afternoon when I emailed her.
Perfect.
Didn't want to forget you too. Feel it.
Okay.
And we want to share.
Good evening, Dr. Osunde.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, we're about to go over the information about where the cuts and the money or changes are going to occur.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Sunday. Good to see you.
Good evening, Dan.
I am showing you the scoreboard that I shared with you, as I said, on Friday, and it reflects, I'm going to try to put my cursor here, the budget that was sent over to the town per the board's recommended budget that was approved on February 25th, and that reflected a 3.88% budget increase. So that's where we've been up until this point. Now that the town council has set the budget, and you will see a slight different number here than what I sent you on Friday, because I realized why I was at 2.25%. We were over by almost $4,000 from the actual town appropriation. So I did get confirmation of that number. So the $121,184,338 is our fiscal year 22 appropriation for our budget. So obviously, we have,
Excuse me, Pam, are you able to zoom in on that?
let's
Sorry.
see. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my larger screen here, which really isn't fair of me, so.
To the yellow
I
dot.
can see that. I am not seeing anything that's allowing me to do that.
Pam, if you go down to the bottom right corner, there's plus and minus on the Excel sheet.
Yeah, is that going to reflect on here then, Kevin?
I would think so. But it should be
Bear
trying
with
to look
me.
on your screen.
I'm working with two screens here. You're right. Thank you, Kevin. Is that better? Maybe I can do one more and still
Yeah.
keep it all in there. Okay, good.
Lovely. Okay. These old eyes, I need help.
My
Well, I told you I was cheating. I was looking at my large screen. Okay, so we have approximately $1.9 million that we needed additional reductions to get to town appropriation. So in further review of our budget, we are recommending the reduction of the $140,000 that we put in for the preschool salaries. As you may recall, we discussed with you that we were concerned about this past year's deficit and the prior year, since there was shutdown in the school year of 1920 as well as this year for 2021. And as a result, we've been monitoring that very carefully. I'm happy to report at this point that there are some stabilization funds available that will help get us through the projected deficit for this fiscal year. And based on our review and analysis of the program, hopeful that we will have our full complement of students that we can fit into the program, that we're not projecting a deficit, therefore we will not need this appropriation in our fiscal year. So that's a significant reduction, obviously. So we are recommending $140,000 be removed from the budget. In addition, I did make that unemployment number work so that we are at the appropriation that the town provided. But I will tell you, if you recall, we had quite a few positions that were being reduced, and we didn't get there yet, but Dr. Robinson will speak to a couple of the positions that she's recommending reinstatement of. If that occurs, we had $200,000 estimated for additional unemployment costs, and I'm recommending that we reduce that to by $85,998. In addition, we did go out to bid for the cleaning of Flood Middle School, and while the savings weren't as significant as we hoped, we did secure a new company starting for the new school year, actually July 1st, and there was a $5,000 savings, so we are recommending that reduction as well. And the postage company elimination, there is a budget figure in our current operating budget of approximately $8,000, and we do pay a company to come in, gather our mail, they stamp it at a reduced rate, and we stopped that service when the shutdown occurred because obviously we didn't have as much in postage and we weren't allowing anyone to come into district office. After a thorough analysis of potential savings with that service, we determined that we really weren't saving that kind of money, and we certainly weren't saving any labor since we still had the responsibility of putting the mail through. So it's our recommendation to eliminate that. We don't feel it will change anything we do internally. So that's another $8,000. Then we can speak to the reinstated positions that are being recommended by Dr. Robinson. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom to show you those, but before Dr. Robinson speaks to them, I think I will also, if you don't mind, talk about what we're recommending to be expensed to ESSER. So providing these positions are reinstated, and as I said, Dr. Robinson will speak to them. We have to add back the $336,141 to our budget, which leaves us with a little over $2 million short from the town appropriation. So we have been working on this obviously since March, and we were told by the town that it looked like we would that the mayor was only recommending a 2.25% increase. At that point, we honestly believed that we were going to have to ask you to make some really difficult decisions about reducing further staff. So we started a list of things to talk about, not necessarily positions that would have been reduced, but definitely positions to talk about. That's what this list represents. At this point, we're recommending that they become grant funded through the ESSER grant, and this is what we got permission to do. As Dr. Robinson noted, we did have to provide a lot of information to the state to secure this funding, and this is part of the entire ESSER 2 grant, which was shared with you previously. So this is a total of $2,008,989. So what this does in essence is prevent us from having any additional personnel reductions than what the board already approved in its budget back in February. And I know I did provide those to you as well. I do have the slides available if you want to look at them, but it might be a good chance for Dr. Robinson to speak to the positions that she's recommending reinstatement.
Yes, thank you very much, Pam. In February, we gave you a proposed list of reductions we felt we would need to take in order to get to the 3.88. In the work that we have done since, where we have looked at what we could, when we found out what we could move into ESSER for continuity of services, we're still retaining some of those cuts, but there are a couple that we feel that we, at this point, would very much, we're finding that a loss of those particular positions would be very difficult in the times that we have ahead of us in terms of dealing with the issues around students who have not had social contact, at least totally inadequate, and the kinds of isolation that they've endured. We want to have some social emotional things available. We want to have some enrichment activities, and we really are concerned that we make sure that we implement a well organized and well-equipped acceleration program for students so that they can end up working at grade level work and give them all the support that they need. So in our original cut list, which sounds pretty cold, but we reduced a 1.0 preschool coordinator. We want to keep that in the reduction category. We reduced a 1.0 CTE coordinator. We still wish to leave that in the cut category. We reduced a 1.0 STEM coordinator. This is one that we believe very strongly we need to continue, so we want to move that to the ESSER 2 funds. That person has already organized all of our summer school and been working with the tutoring program and helping get things coordinated for that. Our program is really based on a STEAM, which is the STEM aspects with art, music, and it is a really solid program, and we feel that this is someone that is very necessary to continue and is definitely related to the COVID. We reduced a 1.0 special education department head, reduced 6 certified teachers, and reduced 2 enrichment teachers. I'm recommending that we reinstate those 2 enrichment teachers once again for the same reasons that I'm mentioning for the STEM coordinator, for the acceleration of the students, extra help in helping the teachers be able to do some enrichment activities with these children and enhance their experience. So the we do have the ability to move those funds or move those positions into the ESSER funds. We received some approval on that. And I believe very strongly that those will be critical positions as we're moving forward.
And I would just add that the CIA positions, the 2 part-time, were really based on a discussion with Ed Malloy, Dr. Robinson, and Dr. Beta, in that he did mention that those 2 part-time positions do a lot with computer services within both of the high school. So he was recommending that we keep those positions, and they do not get benefits, so the dollar amount is significantly less. So it is our recommendation to add those back in as well.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Karen, are we doing questions right now or waiting till the end?
I want them to finish presenting what needs to be presented, and then we'll ask questions. If that's okay with you all.
I'll just say at this point, that's really your budget. It does get us to the dollar amount that we need to get to, the $120,184,338.
And it also means that the board doesn't have to look deeper for cuts at this point. We are able to do what we need to do with fewer cuts than we actually started with.
Okay. Allison, go ahead.
My question comes in with the STEM coordinator. I know when you had first presented the budget and it was on the chopping block, there really wasn't much to say. You pretty much said it was only reinstated 2 years ago. There wasn't a lot of talk about, okay, if we had the money, we would love to keep this position. So I guess I'm just a little confused in terms of when I think of how to support students best, I think about having direct contact in classrooms. So when you talk about math interventionists, reading interventionists, being able to pull kids, for me, I guess I'm just looking for more information or even data on what would best help support our kids when we talk about a COVID learning loss, since that was kind of the reasoning.
Great question. And yes, we tried not to build up the position that we were about to cut at that time. We have found that this position does in fact supervise the math coaches that go in the classroom. She does training with them, takes them in. She also is training teachers in the NGSS throughout the elementary level. And she does demonstration lessons. She's in the classroom. She is also coordinating the kinds of enrichment activities, the push that we have for preparing the teachers for accelerated learning rather than doing what I call fill the potholes. This model is doing just-in-time tutoring for the students so that they have access to grade level work. And she is training in that along with the NGSS, and I consider this a very critical position to help us recover from the COVID in terms of our academic recovery.
Because the follow-up, I guess, comment is it's hard for me to kind of accept that, knowing how easily we were going to cut it before, and now it's turned into a vital position. So that's just where my head is at. But
I totally understand, and throughout we have been saying how we got to find a way to be able to save this position, but and this was the way to do it. But it certainly does fit in the ESSER 2 because it is directly related to our COVID recovery.
Okay. All right, Bob DiLorenzo.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Robinson. Hi, Pam. My concern is still revolves around the teachers aspect, and I know some of the numbers might not match in terms of enrollment, but on the flip side, usually enrollment's going to pick up late August, early September in most spots. The real concern for me, and I know, things were said back in February. The concern for me is not putting, the teachers or some of the teachers that impact our kids that are going to have numbers go in the classroom from like 19 students to 20.
I have the data, and it's hard for me to figure out where, and I've said that on, in responses there, I don't know where it's coming from because I have the enrollees, I have the data. This is updated on an ongoing basis. Matter of fact, we're looking at enrollment every single day because I can get an automatic update as new kids enter. This is the data. And every year we move teachers when we have a situation where maybe two teachers in second grade, that class is going into third, which currently has 3 third grades, and it has to be reduced. It's typical operation.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, because obviously you have retirees and you have other things that are happening. It's just, like I said, it's a little disappointing and discouraging to me that, where the numbers are a little higher, we're eliminating a couple teachers in there, that's all.
Okay, well, I appreciate and understand your opinion. We are well with below what a lot of districts have class size. The board has done a great job of protecting class size. It's been something I've come to the board every year and said this is important, and I'm still doing that. I'm still protecting class size. So,
well, part of it is trying to, and then I'll stop talking. But part of it is trying to protect those teachers that are in there, trying to do the work they're supposed to do. So that's where I'm coming from. If you
sure,
you understand that. So
sure, thank you. I appreciate it.
Amy, Bob, I'm going to ask you to put your hand down so I don't make a mistake that it's up again.
Thank you, Karen. I guess I just would echo Allison's statements. This is no secret that what's critical to me doesn't seem to be what's critical to others. What's critical to me is a teacher in front of a classroom, and I can't support elimination of our teachers for an administrator to be reinstated. I feel like this is going to be a very long evening. I think there's a lot of us that feel that way, and I'm excited that we've got some reinstatements, but I'm truly disappointed that we've got administration on here when you know how I think the majority of us feel that we're already so very top heavy when we compare ourselves to other districts. And when we've got specialties of literacy, arts, and foreign language covering K through 12 or K through 8, I think this is an unfair, this one line item is an unfair reinstatement for our budget.
Thank you, Amy. Ben?
Dr. Robinson, just to help me out a little bit, because I just saw these literally within the last hour. When we're all said and done here, between who we've moved to ESSER, who we've reinstated, at the end of the day, who have we cut? What specific, I don't mean by name, but what specific classroom, grade level, specific area are we cutting, and what's the total number of certified staff that are being cut under your proposal?
Okay, the total certified staff, and I do have the data if you want to hear the grade levels. But let me first say, we're reducing a department head, 6 certified teachers, and a CTE coordinator and a preschool coordinator. So 3 of those are administrative positions, and 6 of those are certified teacher positions, which are determination on those positions is based upon enrollment. And as you recall, Ben, on that report that we got in the school plan planning, the enrollment projections do show Stratford having a slow decline, but it is a decline. So I feel that the projections we're getting at this point are not that far off the money.
And what were the classrooms or grade levels, however you have it broken out, that the 6 certified staff
Okay.
are being removed from?
Well, there's some that are being added to, and there's some that are being removed, so bear with me on this. Okay, so at Lordship, it removed 1 kindergarten teacher, 1 second grade teacher. At Nichols, removed 1 first grade teacher. At Second Hill Lane, 1 first grade teacher. At Whitney, 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, 1 sixth. Add 1 kindergarten, add a 4th grade. Wilcoxon, remove 1 third grade teacher, add to 2nd grade. Johnson, remove 1 fifth, add to 6th.
Okay.
Which I can send you this list later if anyone wants it.
Yes, can you send it to
please.
all the members?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Can I just, if I could just add, Ben, that you're going to see that the math only adds up to a reduction of 5 actual teachers. And the 6 that we will be paying for is going to be absorbed through some of the retirements that we recently had. So I just didn't want anyone to see the numbers and, think that we were all confused. But when we most recently did this exercise, you'll also see there are some additional considerations that we haven't taken at this point because we are waiting to get through our months to see what we need, and that would just be shifting.
That was my next question of the 6 certified staff and the department head. Are we absorbing any of those through retirement, where we're not actually laying someone off or terminating an employee?
Normally, Ben, I would say yes, we are, because we have typically had maybe 6, 7 elementary teachers retired. This year, we only have 1 elementary teacher retired. The rest of the retirements are coming from the upper grades.
And I'll just add that with the reinstatement of the 2 enrichment teachers, there is a possibility that those positions will absorb some of this shifting, because as you may be aware, those enrichment teacher positions are currently vacant.
And if we were, Pam, let's assume for a moment we were to follow Allison and Amy's line of discussion, and we were to eliminate the STEM coordinator that we were adding back, how many teachers would that allow us to take of the 6 to put back into the classroom?
It would, I'd have to do the math, but it would be less than 2 because we normally have about a $65,000 starting salary in that vicinity plus medical benefits. You would only be taking the medical benefits of 1 employee and now making it into 2. It would probably be like 1.5.
Okay. Andrea?
Thank you. The fine print states that to be reduced from the 22 operating budget paid through grant, then reevaluated for future elimination. So are all these ESSER funded positions now on the chopping block going forward? Because I have some concern about that going forward.
I think as I started with Andrea, they were just a list that we started to put together based on our cabinet discussions, knowing that if we were not allowed to utilize ESSER funds, we would have to come to the board with these very difficult decisions. So we were starting a list, but that is going to continue to be evaluated throughout the next school year. But we are saying that once the ESSER funds go away, as I've noted before, we're very concerned about that fiscal cliff, and we'll probably make it fine, obviously, through next year. We may even have another year. And I am hoping for a third. I don't know if that will happen. It depends on what we all decide to do with the ESSER funds, but it is a concern. So to your point, they may be positions that are
okay.
you.
You know, because we have 1 coordinator at SPED there, moved to ESSER, but we've just cut a SPED department head, and so then we're really like narrowing down in a way that makes me a bit uncomfortable. You know, our SPED
department, for example, or the music, art, PE, health coordinator, you know, we're going to add a second STEM coordinator, but potentially, you know, be getting rid of somebody who covers that amount of stuff. So these things concern me looking at this list.
And
going forward.
And right, exactly. And that's exactly what I was going to say. It was collaborative. I never pretend to be the educator in the room. And they were, I will tell you, and through the teams, they were very thoughtful, but obviously it was our preliminary list, and we were fortunate enough not to have to go any further with it because of it.
Okay. Janice? Thank you. You're muted.
You think I would have learned by now, right? After so long. Thank you. Both Andrea and Ben asked a couple of my questions. Going back to the one that Andrea brought up, which, you know, I wrote down, I would have expected that based, you know, with the ESSER funds, knowing that it's to last until, what is it, 2024, is it?
September 24th.
24, that your recommendation on that list would have been planned, right? Like you have a plan for the entire grant for that period that we're allotted to, you know, use those monies. And it just sounds like, well, for this fiscal year that's coming up, this is the decision we've made, but we're not thinking in the future of what we're going to do with those positions. That's how it sounds to me.
That's absolutely not true. We have.
So can we talk about that and let us understand what the plan is for those positions beyond this? Okay, go ahead.
With the ARP ESSER, our hope, and part of the problem, you know, there's lots of problems, but we're working on our plan to bring to the board. But part of that plan starts off with recognizing, and again, Dr. Gaeta and Dr. Robinson can definitely do a better job than I can on this part, but how do we meet the needs of our students based on all they've been through over the past year and a half? That was filling the first grouping of buckets that we call them in our spending plan. We've also set aside funding for at least fiscal year 23 for these positions that we're bringing to you this evening, because the monies here are ESSER 2 monies, so it doesn't touch yet the ARP ESSER. My goal was also to have fiscal year 24 in there. Right now, we're kind of squeaking that in, but you know, there are a lot of other requests being made that the board is going to have to make decisions on. And I will tell you, one of those is that the town is asking us to utilize some of this funding for capital. And of course, I've had some great meetings with the town, and I did tell them that we can try to accommodate the request, but the final decision rests with the board. And again, our first and foremost is going to be, what do we need to support our student? So the plan is there. We've been working on it. So we are not ignoring the concerns. We share them.
When you look at it, we have two ESSER grants. ESSER 2 is the one we're discussing tonight. ARP, the American Rescue Plan ESSER, is down the road for us, and we'll be back to the board to talk about that as we start planning with that. With ESSER 2, our priority is looking at what we believe were the increased needs of our children for the next 2 school years. We know that our children have been in developmentally inappropriate isolation. It is not a normal situation to have a child learning from a computer at home, in many cases, not joining a classroom. We know from the research of what's coming in from other areas and different entities that are doing research on this, that our kids will have increased social emotional needs. We are hearing that particularly in math, kids have not acquired the level of math that they would normally. So using what we are hearing and the data we're starting to see on our children, we have made a focus for ESSER 2 for the next 2 years to increase the kinds of things we do with our students. The research is telling us that two things that have the greatest impact and academic gains for kids are using an approach called accelerated learning, and secondly, intense just-in-time tutoring. I'm using the coordinators and other people to prepare our tutors and our teachers to be able to do what needs to be done. If you take these children, some of whom had very little support at home, and we say, okay, let's put them in remedial programs. We know what the history is of remedial programs. They never catch up. So we want to follow what the research tells us are the best things to do for kids in these particular situations. So we have a very robust plan for professional development for our teachers, but we need people to be working with the teachers in the classrooms, helping them do the things they need to do, planning with them during the PLCs, helping them be able to transition to a different focus in their teaching. So that's why I've really tried to emphasize these next 2 years.
Okay.
Thank
Ben?
you. Karen, I wasn't finished. I was not finished.
Okay.
So that's a great transition into my next question, because earlier it was brought up about seeing administrators on the list of saves, right, versus cuts. What we should be talking about is not necessarily what category they're in, but the role and how essential or not the roles are. You know, because if we're saying, yes, save teachers and have more teachers, but how is that helping the teachers if they don't have the support? So we need to be talking about what those roles entail, right? To understand where they might be beneficial. Not because it's an administrator means let's, cut it, but let's figure out what our teachers need in terms of support, and then what positions we should be trying to support, to help them. So can we discuss more about that? Because,
Certainly.
any comments on that? Thank you.
Janice, I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. The reality is this is not the time for teaching same old, same old. We've been working on increasing our instructional strategies and doing more, and what now when we have this situation in front of us where children need us to really be focused and to be in agreement what needs to happen, we need people who are helping the teachers. If we have every child has the most up-to-date, dedicated teacher, and they've got the support of tutors who are not just sitting there doing worksheets with them, but tutors who really know how to do the just-in-time learning that fits what they need for grade level work. With those children will be in much better shape in 2 years. So that's why I consider that STEM coordinator an essential position, because it's looking at this and what we need to do. The math seems to be the area they're seeing throughout the country that is, as the students are coming back in with greater deficits. And so the STEM program is where we need to really be emphasizing. We know that we're prepared for the reading, the increase in literacy, but we're worried about these particular areas. And I agree with exactly what you said, Janice. I think you look at what the person offers, not the person themselves, the position offers, in order to support what we need to do for our kids for the next 2 years.
So my comment wasn't in support or against the position. I want us to talk about how does that position support our teachers? Like, is it interacting with our teachers a lot? Like, I wanted more insight and context from you on that position to justify adding it back, or whatever else board members are considering. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wanted you to dive in a little bit more in depth on how that role is helping our teachers, so we can have a better understanding to say, okay, we're making the right decision or not.
The role requires professional development, working with the teachers, meeting with the teachers in grade level groups, helping them be able to apply the concepts in the accelerated learning to their teaching as we move forward. That role also requires demonstration lessons. It requires setting up some unique and special activities for enrichment for students. It is working a great deal with teachers in the classroom and in their professional learning communities. And this is the coaching model, as we've learned through our math coaches. The coaching model is a fabulous model to help teachers just keep improving. We want our teachers to keep improving, and they certainly will have challenges, so it's important that we give them the support in order to be the best teacher they can be. And that's why I put value on this particular position, as opposed to bringing all positions back. I felt this was a critical position at this time.
Linda, you wanted to add to that?
If you don't mind, I appreciate that. The one thing that I see from my position is that we have 9 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. And if we're working with nearly 4,000 students at the elementary level, a little under that, obviously, trying to keep our message and our programming, our monitoring of student progress and responding to what students need in terms of interventions, those conversations happen, for example, at the elementary level. 1 month is devoted, grade level meeting is devoted to literacy. The next month is devoted to mathematics. And all of our elementary teachers are focusing on mathematics, the programs, giving feedback to their coaches. Or one of the other things that I know our coaches and our STEM coordinator have been doing is meeting with principals and actually doing workshops with principals, workshops with parents, so that they can become more familiar with our programs and our resources that we have. That is such a crucial area, not only in math, but in science, because several years ago, we had to stop our progression of the NGSS implementation at the elementary level. We had a very well-defined plan, and then when COVID hit, well, first we had some budget concerns that put us back another year, and then when COVID hit, obviously we had some other challenges. We need a very, I don't want to say structured, but we need a very consistent message and practice happening in all of our elementary schools. And this particular position not only works with teachers, but helps to keep the message and the information for principals, parents, and teachers in alignment. And that works through, not only through messaging, but also through staff. And the math coaches meet on a regular basis, and they point out particular difficulties in curriculum where students are not. We just brought something to the curriculum committee about our kindergarten mathematics program, and something that was brought up. So this is a constant conversation. But more than anything, I really would love to see those 9 elementary schools on the same page when it comes to our discussion about how our students are moving forward in math and in science. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, Dr. Gaeta. That was well said. And you made me think of one other thing too. This is often a gathering of resources. Researching resources is something that most teachers just simply don't have the time to do. And this is also the function of this particular position, to give resources to teachers. And elementary teachers, as we've talked before, they love reading, language arts, writing, and one of the things that are not strengths for them are science and math. And so we feel it's really critical at this time.
Okay, Ben. You there, Ben? Okay.
Yeah, no, forgot to take my hand down. Sorry about that.
Okay, so you don't have a question?
Nope.
Okay. Next is Allison.
Thank you, Karen. I just had 2 comments and then a question. The first was, I still just, again, when I hear about how critical this position is, I just can't get over thinking about the meetings we had initially for the budget, when there was no speak of how critical this position was. I'm sure we could look back in the minutes and pull up some quotes, but that's my first thing. My second is when we talk about professional development that's planned, I wasn't aware or had heard that PDAC had met yet, the committee, so I don't know if that's actually happening. I guess my overall thing is I'm just struggling to accept what's being said. But my question is, last year, now I'm getting years mixed up, but when we had approved the 8 drop 2 for the high schools, which I believe we were supposed to implement at the beginning of this year, but with COVID, we had a different schedule anyway. There was talk of needing additional teachers to support that schedule, and I haven't heard of that, I know we're going to still need more teachers to accommodate that, so I don't know where that comes into play here since it hasn't been addressed.
That you're absolutely correct in remembering. That's what's being discussed, and as students are signing up for classes, they're keeping us apprised of what it looks like in terms of a need for additional sections in every content areas. And it is possible that we may end up having to add a couple to the high school level. And as you heard Pam say earlier, there are a couple of other positions, if we need to, that we may have to drop in order to meet another need. And you're correct. We're still watching that.
But will we know more as we're having these discussions, though? I just don't know when it feels like very important as we talk about reinstating one position versus needing teachers to accommodate the graduation requirements. And those were extensive conversations about the number of staff, so I'm concerned.
Okay, Andrea.
Aaron?
Oh,
I'm sorry, Andrea.
I have a list, Ben.
Yep.
You're on the list. Andrea's next.
Thank you. Dr. Gaeta and Dr. Robinson, what you were describing to us as the position of the K-6 STEM coordinator sounds to me like what I imagine the math coaches do. It detailed a lot of stuff that I thought that the math coaches did, that they coach the teachers, that they're doing PD, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just, with all those math coaches, with 2 STEM coordinators and 2 math department heads at the high school, I'm just not certain what the K-6 coordinator is doing. I mean, we've had an unfilled enrichment spot for months now, and my understanding is that children aren't, their services in that arena aren't being met. And so what you detailed sounds excellent, but I'm not sure if that's, what's actually happening in the building.
You took the words out of my mouth, Andrea.
Okay.
Well, may I also say that, yes, there was one position that was not filled, and actually our K-6 STEM coordinator was trying to fill in to the best of her ability so that those students did not miss out entirely on the rest of the school year. So that is important. But again, if you have 8 math coaches and they're working in individuals, they're all in individual schools, there's still the information that they use based upon their meetings that they're getting with their colleagues. They're sharing information about what they're seeing in the math program with each other. It's difficult for someone who's stationed in one building to be able to see what's going on with the whole math program in the district because they don't have that perspective. And I think having the STEM coordinator in that position allows that to happen. The coaches are fabulous, but I think the conversation that they can have really magnifies the effect as well. And I think that's what happens when the STEM coordinator helps out with that. And Allison, to your point, it's really difficult at the very beginning of the year when we start talking about positions, to go to a K-12 STEM coordinator position with the multiple, with the 13, really 14 programs that we have in the district, or different sites that we have in the district. It's a very difficult position to fill. Right now, we have a K-8 literacy coordinator. And so we no longer have the secondary literacy coordinator that we had in the district. So we lost that in the last budget.
Okay.
A lot of the data you said about collecting amongst the schools would, I would love to see that. Those are things I do feel like we talk about all the time, the alignment across the elementary schools, yet that is information that is never shared until it comes up in meetings like this, so.
Well, yes, but also remember, because of last year, typically we do a report for the board on testing, the state testing. And so that's when a lot of that information is more available, and we've just been at a disadvantage for the last year and a half.
Okay. Bob DiLorenzo is next.
Hi. I feel like this is like just going back and forth, and thankfully this is my last year doing a budget. But again, Dr. Robinson, each year, I've asked and other people have asked, and I do understand where there's parts where teachers cannot be saved, but then there are situations where they can. The challenge is over the years is it doesn't seem like you want to put in the work, or your team wants to put into work to actually look at cutting your own administration or looking at reducing your own administration. Now that might come off cold, but I'm siding with the teachers. They're the most important thing in our town, in our classroom, and to our kids. My suggestion is, and it's a simple suggestion, is your team works harder to look at cuts within your administration and comes back to us and lets us know where you can cut it. Now, I already know what you're going to say, but that's okay as well. But that's where I personally stand.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Ben, you're next. Every time a hand pops up, I write the name down, so don't think I'm ignoring it.
What's the cost of the 6 teachers?
We actually have that.
360,000.
Thank you. Yes.
That's all in?
Yes. Well, no, that's only their salaries.
Salaries.
And the benefits, we have estimated about $20,000 per, so it'd be another $120,000. About
So look at
$400,000.
just under $500,000 for the 6 teachers.
Correct.
But if we're talking that one teacher takes over for the retirement at the elementary level and 2 of them could potentially take enrichment positions, then we're talking about 3 teacher positions at this point, likely. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's not 360 here.
So if we're looking at really only 3 positions being cut, roughly $250,000, of which half of that is at the STEM level. We'll try that again. The STEM director level is roughly half of that. Look, if you haven't figured this out yet, guys, the 7 board members don't want to see those teachers cut. So I will say for them what they're not, I think, saying. They would like you to come back and show them how to save at least those 3 teachers.
Ben, I have to say, we love to save teachers, but we also have to be responsive to where the needs are. If we are going to have teachers to save teachers when the numbers of students don't merit that, how responsive is that to our community? There are bubbles that occur, but there are also grade levels that have fewer kids as they go through. And we want to put the best teachers into the places that they're needed. And if we're simply creating a position to put the teacher in, and you're only going to have 6 kids in those 2 grade level classrooms, that is not justifiable.
Okay. Janet, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but at the end of the day, there are 7 people on this board who got elected by people. They're the ones who are accountable to the 55 or so thousand people in this town, and if they think that's the way it should go, then they get to go back and explain why there's a classroom with 6 kids, not you or Dr. Usande when he comes and joins us next year. But at the end of the day, I don't disagree with you as a taxpayer, but I also know that I've got 7 members that I serve with who, as I've always said, Allison at any time can say, Ben, thanks so much. You don't need to come to the next meeting. She can't say that to the other 6 people. And I think there's times when Allison thinks about doing that. But at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to be accountable to, you know, the 55,000 people in this town. And I would also ask, and I understand if he doesn't want to insert himself into this at the moment, but since Dr. Asande is the one who's going to be managing this in a few weeks, I would be interested in hearing his thoughts on all of this.
Thank you, Ben, for being so pragmatic.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Dr. Asande, do you want to comment, or should I continue with the questions with the board members?
Or
I'm actually going to decline comments specific to this. However, I think there are debatable points on both sides. And I think what is critical to point out is that there is a dependent relationship between the work that happens between administrators with teachers to support kids, particularly in the context of what's happening with the pandemics and all the academic challenges that we know we're going to have. So I would encourage the board to really think about that dependent relationship. It's really a cause and effect outcome, but really spend a little bit of time in that relationship that exists, and that should hopefully inform the decision making at how to adequately source human capital to support teaching and learning.
Okay, thank you. Vinny, you're up.
Thank you, Karen. First of all, I want to address Ben's comments, and don't necessarily assume that there are 7 votes. Don't assume that my vote is to save teachers for the sake of saving teachers. I mean, you save teachers for the sake of educating children, but if it's not going to impact on children, and it might be detrimental because of really small classes, or spending money. I mean, I'm sure we could have classes of 10 children everywhere and hire a lot of teachers. That doesn't make sense. So that's that. My comment on that. But the question I have is really for the 22-23 school year and the ESSER funds. Can we assume that we can apply the ESSER funds in, say, that school year to sustain the positions that we're keeping now using ESSER funds? I'm just worrying about progressing into the future.
Actually,
utilizing these funds, or are we going to end up having to eliminate the positions?
Yeah. It's a concern I think we all share, and it is our hesitant belief at this point that our ESSER, through the American Rescue Plan, will allow us to do the same that ESSER 2 did for continuity of services. And I know Kevin had joined us this evening as well. I don't know, and I know Dr. Robinson has been involved in a lot of the discussions with our as well. I think we're all being led to believe that will be permissible, continue to do what we're doing in ESSER 2. So as I said earlier, it is my hope and our plan to include the same dollar amounts for the personnel in both fiscal year 23 and 24. There's no guarantees of that until we get an approval.
Okay, all right.
If I could just add to that too, Vinny, you raised a really good point, and that's looking down the road to what happens. when you know you have funds that have a limit to them, you try to figure out what is it you really should accomplish during this time. Now, if we just keep adding people, we're going to hit a cliff and drop off that cliff, and it's going to take a lot to maintain those people, or we're going to be laying a lot off. We've made a decision that the best thing we can do during this time, well, there's several best things that we can do, but the best thing, our top priority, is to build the capacity of our staff. Building the capacity of the staff when these funds go away means we will have a capable, competent staff even when the funds are gone. But if all we do is just keep adding teachers, ultimately we'll have to lay them off. And the best thing we can do is build the capacity, help these teachers deal with the kinds of things they have to deal with in terms of having a very positive attitude toward not looking at this as a deficit mindset that these kids are coming in with great academic losses, but rather how can we really focus on having them be successful and do it in a very effective manner. And we need to build capacity over this period of time, and I think that's the smartest use of these funds.
My last question and has to do with the summer program, and I'm just curious how the summer program is going to support the students. I know it's probably been mentioned when we talked about that, but to put it into context, how is the summer program going to help students, and how are we going to select students, or can we select students to participate in those programs?
I think what we'll do, I'm going to answer your question, and then I think what we'll do is do a greater elaboration on what's happening with the summer program when we have the next meeting. The STEM coordinator has been the coordinator for the summer program, which is filled at this point. The students were, the teachers went out of their way to recommend students that would benefit from it. It is well organized. It has a STEAM focus. Well, they'll be doing creative things, very hands-on things. They'll include socialization. It'll include doing some problem solving in groups together. There's everything from Legos and robotics to other kinds of art activities and acting types of activities. And we look at this as being the best reintroduction for students back into their social lives and their learning.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Take my hand out.
Karen, you're muted. Karen, can you hear us?
Allison, maybe you need to take over.
I can't even see Karen. Is she like nodding her head or anything? Nobody's cameras are on.
No, can't see her.
Okay. Well, okay. I was not holding a list of hands up, so I'm going to ask a question then. Oh, go ahead, Karen.
Sorry, ladies' room.
Oh.
Okay. The next person is Janice, unless you left your hand up from before.
No, I raised it. I always have questions. Vinny took one about the ARP ESSER. So just to clarify, those funds cannot apply to the upcoming fiscal, right? Like that's not part of at all. Like that's not part of the upcoming fiscal budgeting.
We can't apply for ARP ESSER until August.
Okay.
We've begun the process of doing what they require us to do, creating the entry plan, posting it, getting input from parents, but we can't actually officially apply till August. And then those funds carry out an extra year.
So, okay, so you can't apply until August, but once you apply and receive it, you can't use it until the following school year? Is that,
No.
or would you be able to use it in the year that is coming?
Yes, as soon as it's approved, you can begin using the funds. So there's an overlap between the
Okay.
two ESSER funds.
I thought so. And you know, I say stuff and I'm not trying to be mean or disrespectful in any way, but like with that in mind, I personally, granted, you know, about the 6 students in a class, like fiscally, it doesn't really make sense, right? That part is clear. I don't really feel like we should be making these cuts. Like, it just seemed like we have a new superintendent that's going to be starting. The board members have been asking questions forever to better understand how things work and how different roles, you know, interact with each other. What are some of the implications of some of the decisions? Because we talk about things like Allison mentioned early on, you know, we talk about a topic and we're in silo discussing it, and we're not talking about how it's linked to the following year, or a change that might happen, or any of those implications. We don't really understand when we ask, you know, some questions, we're not getting answers on the impact of certain positions, you know, to justify some of these decisions. And I really don't feel like we should be cutting things knowing that, you know, there's money coming in. I don't feel like we should be making some of these cuts. That's where I stand. Because who's to say the new superintendent comes in and realizes some of these cuts have bigger implications than we as a board understood them to be? How do we know the effects on the students aren't going to be greater than we initially thought in these meetings?
All right, thank you. Amy?
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so I have a few comments and then I have a detailed question. Dr. Robinson, you said that if we keep adding teachers, and I don't think anybody here is suggesting that we add teachers, we just want to keep our teachers. If small class is an issue, I think it's a great problem to have, because if our kids need anything right now, it's more attention and more concentration. So if we are having 2 classrooms of 12, I welcome it, rather than packing 24 into a class and trying to get a teacher to bring them all up to speed after COVID. I don't think that we're going to have empty classrooms. I think we're going to have more one-on-one instruction, which would be fantastic and welcomed. And the question I have is that historically, our STEM coordinator position was not 2 people. So can you give the public the explanation as to why it was divided, when it was divided, and if the data to date supports our kids advancing in these areas to have to continue?
Good questions and good comments too. When I hired the K-12 STEM coordinator, Harold Greist, I said to him, this is an impossible job for you to do with the work we have ahead of you. So we're going to have to focus. Right now, I want you to start focusing on elementary math. This is a high school person, and he did a bang-up job. He researched, and he did the best he can, and he brought forward what he saw as being the needs for the elementary. After a number of years of this, it became clearly apparent, well, especially with the new NGSS, clearly apparent that we needed to do more work in science too, and that was overwhelming. There was no way one person could do secondary and elementary at the level that the assistance was needed. And so that's when I brought that position forward, and we hired an elementary STEM coordinator. Unfortunately, 1.5 years of that has been in COVID, and most of that PD and other kind of work has been her coming on, introducing things to help the students. The GG and the other things that you see have all been resources that have been brought in by the coordinator that are appropriate for elementary level. So we hope that as we get kids coming in, and we should have data for you in terms of where they are. We will be gathering that data, and then we will also be setting up plans for how we're going to improve wherever we need to improve and to accelerate and enrich as we go along. Someone has to do that.
So I remember this time last year, the math coaches being on the cutting block, right? And we all talked about the importance we felt they had in instructing our teachers to do this kind of very important work to get the data and to get the scores and to get our kids up to snuff. We were lucky enough to save them, and I want to best support those efforts moving forward. And I'd rather have, forgive me for anyone who disagrees, but I'd rather have more people in our school building and in our classrooms doing the actual work. And when I look at our list of specialists, many of them do K through 12. You know, our arts and humanities and our physical education is K to 12. And I just can't, and like Janice said, I just can't at this point support cutting what is the most crucial thing for our kids right now in the classroom for other things. So, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Andrea?
Thank you, Karen. I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again because I think it's going to happen. What do we do? So we cut teachers, we have 6 kids in a class. What happens when we have an enrollment bump in August? And I think the likelihood of that is extraordinary, knowing what I know about who's moving into town. What do we do then? So we've cut our veteran teachers and the teachers that are familiar with the district, and now we need to go out and hire teachers that don't have a job in August. That's not the greatest situation.
We've been faced with that happening before, and we brought back our teachers, and they've stepped right in. It's not been a problem. We are able to hire at the elementary level, and but we will have people who will be on our list to be the first call back in. It does happen. I think last year we had to add a 5th grade teacher over at Chapel. So it does, none of us have a crystal ball. So we have to look at what we know right now, and then we have to be very nimble. But that's why we pull down the enrollment a minimum of once a week. And as we get into August, we're pulling it down every day, watching that and paying attention. So it can happen.
Okay. Additionally, Karen, if I may, one other separate thing. You sent us all an email today discussing that the state legislature had passed the budget and it gives Stratford another $2 million. How does that impact our school budget?
Well, I said I hope it's good. I haven't seen the budget for sure yet. Okay. But the governor's budget was taking $2 million in ECS funds away from Stratford, whereas the legislative plan that had been put in place prior gave the town $2 million more. And if that is what passed today or last night, then Stratford as a town will receive $2 million more in ECS funds.
That doesn't necessarily translate coming into the board budget being boosted.
Correct.
We'll receive $2 million more, or we'll receive what we were supposed to have gotten?
It was what we were supposed to have gotten with the legislative plan. Not the governor's plan.
Okay. Allison.
Karen, first, it goes back to Ben's comment, and then to piggyback off of Janice, I feel like it's not just keeping the teachers for the sake of keeping teachers, but it's about using them effectively. And we don't really know what that could look like yet. So whether that's in a classroom, as enrichment, whatever that is. My question is, for the students that went to parochial schools or were homeschooled this year, was there a survey, or do we know any numbers of expected students that left the district that are coming back? Like, how are we measuring this influx of students that have left public school that most likely will return next year?
We don't have any data on who's planning to come back or who's contemplating coming back. When they call and they start registering, yes, then we have them. Right now, we do not.
So that's kind of up in the air at this point in terms of.
Absolutely.
It could be a very big influx, if you will, of that we don't know about, essentially.
It's possible, yes.
Okay. Bob DiLorenzo. Maybe he left his hand up from before. Okay, Vinny, go ahead.
I just have a question that is kind of carryover for me from planning, and that is the SLR report. Has that been distributed to all board members as of today?
Well, it has been distributed. It is posted on the website. We're getting it out to everybody. It's public.
Because some of the questions about projecting enrollment is there. That's the only reason I ask.
Yes, so if you haven't gotten a separate copy, then go to the website. It's prominent right there. You'll see the enrollment projections.
There's a lot of data there, so look at it carefully. And if you really need to have paper copies, hard copies, then request them from the administration. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take a moment. I put my name on the list to weigh in on a couple of things and ask a question. The staff that we're losing through attrition, are they being replaced, or is that being absorbed as a loss?
The staff that we're losing through attrition, the majority of those are secondary. Only one is elementary. Mm-hmm. So the secondary, yes, they are being replaced.
Okay. My concern about the cutting of staff is huge. With the direct teaching and the direct contact to our students, we're here to support them, to teach them, and to give them the best that we possibly can. And I understand we have to save money. And I think that there's some other areas that we need to look, whether it's administrative or doing a percentage off of things that are after school. As much as I want to be able to support all of it, there's certain things that we have to support. And in classroom education is the number one and primary thing, followed up by social emotional support. And so those are the two areas that I feel are incredibly important. And as much as I want to be 120% supportive of teaching our teachers to teach, at some point they have to be self-sufficient. And quite honestly, with the math tutors and the reading tutors, while I understand and know we need them, if we could cut those positions, that would solve our budgetary issue. I don't want to cut them because the kids need them. The staff clearly needs them. And I don't know at this point what the solution is. But it's very hard for me to look at what I refer to as the stairway to heaven, which is the teacher's contract and all the different step levels that they have. That is no longer sustainable. And at some point, we have to deal with that. And whether it's reopening, asking them to reopen and help, I don't want to do that either. But when you have to meet you have people in the community that it's a choice, pay your taxes or buy your groceries or your medicine, you have to kind of look at that as well. And I want to do what's best for our students. and give them the most one-to-one that we can. And that's how I feel. So anyway, Shanice, you have your hand up again? And Pam does as well. I'm sorry, Pam was...
I do. No, I had my hand up before Pam. I saw when hers went up. So, Dr. Robinson, you said last year you had to hire a 5th grade teacher. Do we have in the budget a buffer where, should we receive an influx of enrollment, that we can pay for that? Or is it going to be a situation of budget transfers from areas that we probably should have cut prior to, finalizing the budget?
Your question is a really good question, and it's connected to a question I'm about to ask Pam, who wants to talk anyway. But normally, no, there is not a buffer. If you recall, we used to have a contingency built into the budget, and the contingency was for those unexpected things like that. And it has not been in the budget the last 2 or 3 years. So no, that isn't built in. What we do have right now is we do have the ESSER funds. Pam, what's your sense of finding a compromise position here by having those 3 teacher positions we talked about moved into the ESSER funds, sort of to help for if we need them?
Actually, that was going to be my suggestion, because obviously the board members that have spoken very passionately about the need to perhaps keep those teaching positions. And I think we did determine that we were down to 3 that potentially could be eliminated with the movement. And of course that changes daily right now. But the ESSER funds are flexible. We can ask for a budget revision. We would probably have to tweak it a little bit and take a little bit away from maybe the tutoring money for next year, but fortunately we can then shift that cost to our ESSER. Ultimately, the money's going to run out. And I think Dr. Sunday and I will spend some quality time when he starts next year talking about some of these positions. And as you've said, as board members, it's what Dr. Robinson, Dr. Gata, and I, and Courtney have talked about for the last 8 months, is if we recommend these positions, where do we go from there? Obviously, we're going to have to take a real hard look at that going forward, but yes, we can find the funding. I don't think you necessarily have to look for any reduction to the budget proposal as it stands. It's just going to make that fiscal cliff a little bit larger in a couple of years. But I understand, I really do. I think Amy and Janice and Allison and Andre have all made some really good arguments about your concerns, and that perhaps you would rather have smaller class sizes if that's the end result right now. We looked at it back in February from the perspective that we had to submit something to you that was reasonable for you to submit to the town. And as we said from the beginning, we were at 7%. And in a budget like ours, the only other place to reduce the budget is personnel. So actually, we could make a budget revision and we could go forward with your recommendation, if that's it, to reinstate 3 elementary teachers.
Thank you, Pam. I just, I'm concerned because we know where the student population is growing in town, and we know Johnson House is packed. And that's where, more and more students are coming in. And what are we going to do when those class sizes are already massive and we don't have anywhere in the budget to, let's say, break out another class or something? We have dual enrollment that's taking up rooms. So there's lots of factors at play. And I want to make sure that we as a board have an understanding of how things are going to play out, the different scenarios that could play out when we're making these decisions. And then my last comment is just, Karen, I really don't think it's fair to say the teachers have to end up learning how to stand on their own. Like, they have a lot on their plate. They have a lot of students who are coming in with varying backgrounds and needs. And any profession needs coaching and development. Education is always changing. So we can't say, they need to be able to do it on their own. Like, this is a very delicate industry that we're in.
I think you misunderstood what I was saying, is that there's certain areas where they can stand on their own, and there's some basics that they can stand on their own. I'm not saying they don't need support and they don't need PLC days and development days, anything like that. But at some point, you have to look and look at your population and what the needs, like, as I said, what the students need, and move from there. And so please don't take it as a slight to anybody. That was not the point. The point was when the coaches came in, the public was given the impression that it was not a forever thing, that there was going to be a sunset to it. And there's no sunset to it. And so we either have to embrace it as a forever thing, or we have to figure out how to gently ease out a little bit at least. And do you see what I'm saying? I mean, and when you look at the dollars that are attached to that, it's very substantial, very substantial. And I'm not saying we don't need it. I'm just saying that we need to examine it and really look at it in the future. That's all I'm saying.
Understood, and that's a fair point, I think, but I think it's important to add the context when we make those kinds of comments, because
Well, I was trying to make it concise, and quick. That's all. But Pam, you had your hand up, and then Amy.
That's all I was going to note, was that there was flexibility with the ESSER grant funds if you chose to add back the 3 elementary, and I'm doing the math as you're all talking.
Okay, that was the other thing I was going to ask you. Amy, go ahead.
Thanks, Karen, and I too will make this concise. Janice, to answer your question about Johnson Overflow and Soto, they will be headed to Lordship School where these classrooms are being closed. So unfortunately, it's the vision we need to have to know that does happen, and it's going to happen, and we can't close classrooms at the school that's designated as the overflow. The second thing is, Pam, this question's for you because I don't recall seeing it in the ESSER reinstatement document you sent us, but I know that ESSER funds largely cover social, emotional, but also technology. So is there a way for us to move our entire technology projection to the grant fund to be able to sustain our professional staff?
I think it's kind of, and I hope this doesn't sound disrespectful because I don't mean it that way, it's kind of a shell game. I mean, if you're going to do the benefits, the teachers in the ESSER, then are you suggesting we move the computer technology budget? And you're creating such a hole that makes me really uncomfortable.
The suggestion I have is, if we are purchasing things to improve our technology, and it's a one-time thing, that's what this grant is supposed to be intended to do. And if we're worried about having our teachers covered by a grant and facing this fiscal cliff, why aren't we looking at things that need to be purchased and improved with grant funding and sustaining our budget and our tax dollars for the teachers in town?
We already have a significant amount earmarked for technology in this grant.
Through the ESSER? Okay,
yeah,
that was my question, just because I didn't see it in the...
And we are considerably under budgeted in our general operating for technology. As you may recall, Ed came to you to talk to you about that. So that would be my hesitation. What I might suggest is to perhaps consider, when we get to the ARP ESSER, putting more money into that recommendation for technology as well. And I think that was already in the works as a discussion, and part of that was because of the town asking us to take on some of the capital, and there is a significant amount for technology.
Okay, as long as that's earmarked for improvement, because we all can agree that technology is definitely lacking and needed, so
we're right there with you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, So seeing no more questions, how do you want to proceed with regard to, do you want to send this to the board for a
I
vote?
believe Pam said they would redo it, didn't she? Say they would make some adjustments, so
No,
we wouldn't,
actually,
yeah.
I'm sorry, the budget itself has not changed. What is changing is the dollar amount that we're expensing to ESSER, and it's approximately it's $2,245,526 that will be expensed to ESSER with adding those 3 elementary teachers. So it really doesn't change your budget, so it wouldn't change your motion. You can certainly do 2 motions. You can do one on your operating budget and one, formally approving our shifting of positions to ESSER as we discussed.
Okay.
I would keep them separate. I would definitely vote on your operating budget at the town appropriation amount as presented with the reductions that were taken this evening and the reinstatement.
Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect, or do you need more time to digest it?
I can put it up on the screen because I don't know about you, but I'm very visual. That might help.
Amy, you have a question?
I forgot my hand, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Adding the 3 teachers back, what does that actually mean? What schools, where, how, what? Well, I'm not following, unfortunately.
I can't answer that right now because we have to sit down and digest it, but
So then, what are we voting on?
the bottom line is the budget number.
Let me put it on the screen. I really do think it might help.
And just clarify one last time, while it was 6 teacher cuts, we're reinstating only 3, correct?
Correct. That was what I understood.
So we're still losing 3.
I think that's with the assumption that one is covered by a retirement and then 2 are covered by the open enrichment spots.
That's
so
correct.
2, I suppose, would be moving out of a classroom and into the enrichment positions. Maybe.
That's my understanding as well, Andrea.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're all clear on it, so there's no confusion.
So my recommendation would be that the board approved, oops, something got messed up here, so bear with me for a moment. What happens when you play around with spreadsheet? Let's see.
So can I ask a question while Pam figures out the presentation? Who's it currently in those positions that we're talking about? The 2, and nobody's in the enrichment, nobody's in, so those are unfilled positions that we're saying 3 of the 6 would go towards, and then the other 3
Would retain.
we're saying we would retain through the grant.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fair to say that when Dr. Sunday starts, it might be looked at more closely, especially as we get closer to numbers. Like to Bob's question, where are they exactly going? When we say, we really have no idea how many students are coming back from parochial schools, from homeschool. I think it's just right now allowing flexibility. That's
Correct.
my understanding.
Correct. That's right. Flexibility is going to be needed this year even more than ever.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Okay, looking at the top part, this is really the first motion I think the board should make, and it's to approve their budget for fiscal year 22 for a total of $120,184,338 with the adjustments as noted, and that includes these reductions and the reinstatement of the positions we discussed. Then the next.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry, Denise. I guess my question is, if we're reinstating these 3 positions, so what are we taking away? Did I miss that piece? Or that what just wasn't clear to me? Like, where's the balance there?
Right, the reductions are the positions that we're moving to ESSER, and we're now including a few more to ESSER that are not going, the dollar amount will not be reflected in your budget. They're already gone.
Pam, I have one question
So there
as
was
well.
more ESSER monies than we, I guess I'm just having trouble grasping. You take money, you know, I don't know.
The ESSER
Where's
grant, the ESSER grant was approved, the ESSER 2. What we're going to be recommending is that we're going to make a revision to it, and we had a little bit of flexibility there, but we're making a revision to the ESSER 2, which we're allowed to do, and we will add cost to those 3 teachers to that, and we will probably reduce to one of the other lines for now, and then we'll add it to our ESSER. So it's probably going to be like, off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe fiscal year 23's tutoring program. We will reduce that greatly, and then we will make up for it in our ESSER. So everything will be covered through the scenario as it's stated here. So we had to reduce the budget by the 1.9 million just to get to the town's appropriation. But don't forget, you're adding back 3 positions now for teachers that were already out of this. So when we come down here, we had this total of 2.8 million, and now we're going to increase it by the 186. This would be 48,000, and this is about 4,000.
So instead, in my mind, Pam, it was, okay, we can't do the STEM coordinator because, and I know they're not equal costs, obviously, but one is kind of offsetting the other. If we don't reinstate this one position, but we reinstate these instead. But you're saying we're going to reinstate both and change the ESSER to say in 3 years, we're not going to spend as much money on something else that we thought of. And maybe next year we'll have to revise to say, okay, well, we kept this position this year, but now we actually do need to balance it.
Yep, that's pretty much it, I think. I think I have what you're saying. And again, it was my understanding that we were keeping everything as recommended by the superintendent, plus adding the 3 elementary teachers. If I was wrong on that, I apologize, but that's what I thought.
So that would mean that we would be keeping, I just want to...
It's right here. The STEM coordinators, the 2 enrichment teachers, 2 part-time CIAs, and 3 elementary teachers.
And then we're going to pick up the other, those 3 elementary teachers that you have highlighted. Are those the same 3 elementary teachers in the top piece?
Correct. In the, well, they're not on here. They are in right here. Right here.
Yeah, those are different.
Part of the 6.
Yeah, these are the ones that the board eliminated back in February.
Does anybody...
Karen, I have a question.
What's that, Bob?
Pam, so help me out just a little bit with what's going on. So originally we talked about there was 6 teachers, right? Now we're bringing back in 3. There's some attrition, which means I'm just trying to understand. We have 6 total. We're bringing back in 3. We don't know where the 3 are going because you guys don't know yet. And the other 3, what happens to the other 3? Are they being laid off, or are they moving to different positions?
To the best of our knowledge, and Courtney's on as well, but I will tell you things change and we have to be a little concerned and sensitive to certifications. And if people want these positions, I mean, I realize it's elementary, but nevertheless, with the 6 teachers, as I explained earlier, there was only 5 that we were actually reducing. And there was potential savings from the elementary retirement, the other retirements that we were going to cover that 6th one. So now you're only down to 5. From those 5, you're reinstating 3. So now you have 2 potential layoffs. We believe between the retirement of the elementary, at the elementary level, and the possibility of one or both of those teachers accepting the enrichment teacher position, that there should be no layoffs.
Okay, so that makes plenty of sense. And I thank you for the clarification, but you do realize, for me, it's a hard vote because you really don't know.
But you don't know, because we're making assumptions that these teachers would want an enrichment position, or these teachers might already be looking. I mean, we're just telling you based on the facts we have now. That's all I can add.
So Pam, we're budgeting for the positions, not necessarily the individuals.
Exactly.
Right.
And we always have to look at it that way.
Yeah, always.
Okay, any other, Andrea?
Karen,
Sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I just want to put this out there one last time, a little uncomfortable with the reinstatement of the STEM coordinator when we are still cutting the CTE coordinator, the preschool coordinator, the department head, and we have amazing math coaches. We have a STEM coordinator already, and department heads. So I do feel that it might be $129,000 that we can find a more direct way to get to the students.
I hear you, but none of those other positions that you're mentioning do this job in particular. And earlier someone mentioned that we have a coordinator for music art that's K-12. That coordinator is not able to do this kinds of things that are being done in the STEM coordinator job. Any of those that are stretched K-12 cannot do the in-class stuff in the same way. They can't evaluate, they can't do these things in the same way. We're trying to concentrate efforts to help our elementary students in these areas, particularly math and science.
Okay, Amy?
sorry, no, I was just letting you know that Andrea she had her hand up and I didn't think you could see her.
I thought you had a question too. Anybody else have any comments? If not, do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Second from who?
Vinnie?
Okay.
Karen, do you need me to read it? It's just approving
Yes,
the confirmed amount of our budget. And Pam, if I get the number wrong, correct me, of $120,184,338 as approved by the town.
That's correct, right, Pam?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're going to do a roll call vote. Since we've already had discussion. Janice, we'll start with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Andrea?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Vinnie?
Yes.
Allison? Amy?
Yes.
Who am I missing?
Bob.
Andrea?
Bob? Okay, Bob?
Andrea.
No,
I
didn't
voted.
agree.
I voted.
Andrea voted. Bob?
No.
Okay. And the chair is going to vote yes. So it's one dissent. You got that, Teresa? Hopefully she's got that.
Yes, so noted. Yes, I have it.
Okay, perfect. All right, that is all that is on our agenda for tonight, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And this I can do a full vote, right? All in favor?
What about the second motion that was supposed to have been made? You just voted for a 2.25%, not the rest of it.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, can we rescind those motions?
No, you don't need to.
You don't need to.
The motion can be separate.
No, Pam recommended that we vote on the final operating budget as one, so that was the motion that I made, Karen. The second part, we need to follow
Do
up.
the reinstatement, right?
And the moving to ESSER, yeah.
All right, I'll take a motion for that then. I apologize.
Okay.
Second.
That's Amy, okay? And a second?
Second by Janice.
Okay. Any discussion?
Pam, when will we get an updated version of this, of what your, the adjustments that you're gonna make for ESSER?
The final version.
Yeah, like I personally would want to vote on after I see it, like that would be good. But
I can send
understand,
you
yeah.
this style, a spreadsheet version, but to actually have it uploaded into Alio and have a formal booklet like you've gotten in the past, I can assure you that's going to take us a few weeks to do. So patient with us. We can try for perhaps your June 28th meeting, but I just can't guarantee it. At the end of the year, it's really crazy. So bear with us. But it's simply going to reflect this.
Karen, my apologies. In the beginning, I had thought that this was what we were voting on, so the 225, or the 2.25 I agree on. It's the positions that I don't. I don't know if that makes sense or not, hopefully, but that's...
Are the votes closed?
I was going to say the vote is
Yeah.
closed.
Okay. That's
So
fine.
it's still passed, with you or
No
without
problem.
it being passed.
No problem.
Thank you for the clarification, though. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yep.
So are we going to make this vote tonight, or do you want to wait until you see it?
I will only add it would be incredibly helpful if you could actually move forward this evening, because we have people waiting on hearing whether or not they have jobs.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
That's important.
Yeah. It's okay.
So the
So
second.
we have the motion, we have the second.
Okay.
And we've had discussion, so I'm going to do again another roll call vote. I'll start with Janice.
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes, but I have let my reservations be known.
Yes, and I understand that and agree with it. Vinny?
Yes.
Bob?
Absolutely not. I have nothing to look at. Sorry.
Ben?
Yes.
Allison? Allison?
Yes.
Amy?
My vote is also yes, but I echo Andrea's comment and reservation.
Okay, and my vote is also yes with the same reservation and concern. I prefer to have it in hand. So if we could get that this, sooner rather than later, in case we need to make an adjustment.
At the next meeting, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Ben and.
But we're staying on this meet, Karen, just so people know. We're
Okay,
staying
so-
on this link for the board meeting, so do
All
not
right,
log
so
off, board members.
we're not signing off, we're just staying.
Returning and staying, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So motion to adjourn, and all in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. Okay.
Have fun at your board meeting, folks.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for
Bye,
coming.
Ben. Enjoy our free time.
Bye.
Thank you, Ben.
Do we have to wait, Lou, for a new, is it the same link for everyone at home? So can I just
You
call
can,
to order?
you
Or?
can just keep going. Thank you.
Great. I would like to call this special Board of Education meeting to order at 8:20 p.m. on June 7th, 2021. We have a quorum. We just left a finance meeting, a special finance meeting. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the fiscal year 2021-2022 itemized estimate of expenditures at 2.25%. Move forward from the board with a favorable recommendation from finance.
Do you need a motion?
I'll
I'll make that
entertain a motion to approve. Yep, thank you, Ms. Cupie.
Vinny
Sec-
wants a second? Oh, okay.
Second by Mrs. Corcoran. Any further discussion from finance? This is to move forward with the first motion to accept the 2.25% budget. Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Mrs. Rodia?
Yes.
Mr. Fragella?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltie?
Yes.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. DiLorenzo?
Yes, Al, and I'm just going off of the last mistake.
Chair votes yes, passes 7-0. Teresa, since they were kind of adjoining motions, even though it's not on the agenda, can I still move forward with it?
You need to also vote on the second motion.
I know it's not on our agenda though, and it's a special meeting.
Right, you can have it at another one, because this one you did adopt the budget, so we know we're going forward with the 2.25.
But this is part of the budget, so I think it's permissible for you to take action now.
I just know the rules on agendas for special meetings, so.
Are we
I will
going to keep it this way, or are we going to bring it up again?
Well, I thought we were keeping it this way.
Okay,
I was
we're
under the
keeping yes.
impression as well that we were keeping it, but.
Then yes, vote.
Yes.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the additions, the reinstatements, if you will, and movements from monies to ESSER funds.
So
Do
moved.
I need to add anything? Motion. Thank you, Mr. Fragella.
Second, you got it in there, Vinnie.
Yes.
Seconded by Mrs. Wiltsey. Discussion?
Allison, you said move funds into, monies into ESSER funds, and it was positions.
Correct. It was the, let me get this is why I don't like, I usually don't say this, but this is one of those cases, the paper in front would be helpful. Let me pull it up.
Yes.
So it's the, hold on, the reinstatements, I should say, from the BOE budget proposal from February 2021, and the reductions to our original budget to move to ESSER. That is what our second motion was. So.
All right, so moved on that clarification.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fragella, seconded by Mrs. Wiltie again. And again, just to be clear, our first motion that we already voted on was just to accept the 2.25% as our operating budget. And now we are moving forward with the reinstatements and the reductions moving to ESSER. I hope I'm being clear for the public, so. Okay, discussion. Bob?
My hand is not up, but I mean,
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to, I don't agree with it because I don't have anything in front of me to look at, so.
Okay, so you're voting no?
For the record, my vote is no.
Okay, Mrs. Rodia?
Sorry, yes, with reservations. I prefer to have the paper in front of me, and quite honestly, at our next board meeting, I would like to reaffirm this vote, because I want to make sure it matches what we think we're voting for. Thank you.
Fragella?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes, understanding that we're making this decision now due to, staff needing to know, if they're still employed, so. But I think Pam is gonna do her best to get us the actual final version of those movements that we walked through because they were being changed in real time. She'll try to get us that in time for our next meeting, right? Okay.
Mrs. Wiltie?
I was muted, but I did say absolutely.
Thank you. My vote is
Thanks, Pam.
yes with the understanding that the teachers will remain where they are and the reinstatement positions will be notified immediately.
When you say teachers stay where they are, that wasn't really what was discussed. It
not
was,
The positions.
The positions stay. The positions are not cut. The reinstatement, yes.
Great, okay. Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
The chair votes yes, passes 6-1. Moving on to the next item. Our agenda, sorry. vacation payout for the superintendent. Dr. Robinson had requested a 50% payout of her remaining vacation days. She gets 30 per her contract in a school year. She has 25 left. Dr. Robinson, just for board information before discussion, how much would the actual cost be?
If for 50% of the 25, which would be 1.5 days, at $800 a day.
Okay. So we don't have a, okay.
So it would be approximately, just over $9,000. So to give some context to it, most superintendent contracts include the payout of vacation days. A great number of them have it per year. The board members from Stratford were visiting the schools in Newtown on December 13th, 2012. They interviewed people. We had a handshake agreement at the end of the day to be announced at the following Monday night board meeting in Stratford. And you all know what happened on December 14th, 2012. In the midst of the horrible sorrow that was going on, I forgot or put it on the back shelf. Making a move was not even on my radar. When the board chair called that weekend, I said, I'm so sorry, I have to renege. I have to stay here and deal with what we're dealing with. And he said, we are waiting for you. Don't worry about it. Take the time you need. I said, what a class act. Stratford's really representing a class act. It engulfed in all that I was involved in at the time. Really focused on what I was doing, and I was working 24/7. I didn't even go home for Christmas. Just did what I needed to do. And rumors began in Stratford by about March. And the rumors hit Newtown, and we said we need to go ahead and make this public. So the contract was sent to me, but I wasn't in ahead. I didn't have any focus on the contract itself. I did not do a good job in the details. Every contractor I've ever had has paid out vacation days. So now it was my negligence, but I was not focused. Now I'm retiring. I have been unable to use my vacation days throughout my entire 8 years here. I've taken 3 vacations. In COVID, I have not been able to use them at all. So now I'm retiring, and almost every other superintendent in this state will get a payout on all their vacation days at this point. I'm asking you to consider 50% of the vacation days so that I may have that opportunity. That's what I'm asking.
I'm happy to just lead this discussion or start it as the chair. This board just went through very extensive, as we all know, a superintendent search, and then negotiations, which we all learned a lot, and we learned a lot about different contracts of superintendents and what was typical and all these different things. And I personally, knowing the challenging and detailed process that entails and what we've currently gone through, I just feel like personally I have to stick with what the contract states, and also knowing that it's not typical to have this payout as we were told in our negotiations at the end. So again, that's just how I feel. I know again how much time goes into a negotiation and how much back and forth there can be, and that opportunity that presents itself through those negotiations. So those are just my comments.
I'll just let you know that I did not have those negotiations due to our circumstances.
Right, but wasn't there a renegotiation when your contract?
No.
It revisited when?
No.
Well,
no.
There was an opportunity, and again, I don't want to sound cold. That's how I'm.
Right. You're correct. I'm just asking you to consider it. I've worked 8 years in the district, and we've done a lot of really outstanding work. And leaving Dr. Sunday with some good systems in place that he can soar.
Any other discussion from board members? I'm not asking for a motion unless it's sounding favorable, to be very honest with everyone, or else, I mean, if no one makes a motion anyway, then it just sits, but I didn't know if there were any more comments or a motion to be made or anything. I'm also providing opportunity for any motions to be made. Again, any further discussion.
I'll say something. Sorry, my dog was panting like crazy.
I mean, don't feel obligated, but I just want to make sure. I just want to exhaust it until I.
Like, what do we need? Do we need to make a decision on this? What's the purpose of this? Like,
No, if no one makes a motion, if no one makes a motion in favor. Look at me. It's 9 o'clock at night almost. We just close the meeting. Jeez.
okay. Karen has something to say.
Karen?
Yeah, as much as I want to be able to do something in that realm, I need a little time to think about it now that I know more what the dollar amount would be. And I would ask that we have at least until the board meeting to think it over, because it wasn't budgeted for, and we would have to find money for it. So I think we need a little time to think it over now that we understand the dollar amount.
Honestly, Karen, I'm just waiting to hear if anyone else agrees with you that we need more time to think it over, or if board members have already decided, because I haven't heard that sentiment from anyone else that they needed more time.
Well, at this point, I'll just speak up, and maybe more time is the thing to do. I do know what a horrific time it was for Dr. Robinson. I personally know of a family of one of the children from Newtown, and so I would say if we could postpone this till the regular board meeting, or I would make a motion right now.
I would make a motion to
we do that, Penny.
I'm sorry, Karen, did you say something before?
I would make a motion to table it.
Okay, is that your motion?
Oh,
Yes, please.
All right, I'll second that motion.
well, I would like to discussion on the motion to table, or I guess continue on to, I don't know if we necessarily need to table this, or we can just continue to add it to our next agenda.
Once
since
a
it's
motion to
special meeting.
table is made, you have to follow through.
Right, you have to vote, there's no more discussion.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to table, seconded by Mr. Fagella. Okay, and again, just to let board members know, if we don't table right now, it could go to a vote, or we could table. This is kind of a unique situation for all of us, so I know we're maybe feeling like this is a little awkward since we don't know, haven't been again, this is new to us. So I will take a roll call vote to table. Mrs. Rodia?
Yes.
Mr. Fagella?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltie?
No.
Mrs. Corcoran?
No.
Mr. DiLorenzo?
You're muted, Bob.
No.
And the chair votes no. So that means someone's gonna either have to make a motion to vote, since we are not tabling this item.
Okay, I make a motion. Motion to approve Dr. Robinson's request for a $10,000 vacation payout.
I'll second.
I need a second. Yep, seconded by Mr. Fagella. Discussion?
Where is the money
Corcoran.
coming from?
I would this is more of a comment, I would wildly prefer that we not bring what happened at Newtown into this conversation and not be guilted into saying yes to this motion because of the tragedy at Newtown, because frankly, in my opinion, that has nothing to do with this ask. It upsets me, to be honest.
I agree as well, Andrea.
So since we're not tabling this for, because I would have liked just more information. I wasn't aware of the amount until just now as well. Going through the negotiation process or the contract, and we've, talked about our financial situation here in town. We've made, adjustments to future, how we want to handle future contracts like these. I don't know that the contract states use it or lose it, and I don't want to set the wrong precedent and then have to deal with consequences later on. So that's where I'm coming from.
I'll just reiterate what I had said earlier about, again, having just gone through these negotiations and knowing the back and forth on language that can have and how these decisions are used. It was, we compared Dr. Robinson's contract when negotiating Dr. Sunday's and things like that. So that is my last comment. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Wait, did anyone second Amy's motion? Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Andrea, your hand is still up. I'm assuming you're good though.
Allison?
Yes, Karen.
I just want to know if this goes through favorably, where would the money come out of?
I think Pam can answer that for you.
Absolutely. As you know, we do have a year-end balance projected in substitute line item, and that is where it would come from.
Any other questions? I will take a roll call vote then. Mrs. Rodia?
Come back to me.
Mr. Pagella?
Oh, yes.
Ms. Cupie?
No.
Mrs. Wiltie?
No.
Mrs. Corcoran?
No.
Mr. DiLorenzo?
No.
Rodia?
As much as I want to, after looking at the cuts and all the struggle that we've had with finances, I have to say no. I'm sorry.
Chair votes no. So it's, it declined, I guess, 6-1, whatever the word was.
6-1.
6-1. Okay, that is the end of our agenda for this special board meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:40.
So moved.
Mrs. Rodia,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Wiltie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.